You came to this video so you could figure out why you feel this way. The truth is, the dark night of the soul and depression aren't fun. The good news is that there's a solution for both. I have lived through both, and I'm here to explain to you 5 ways you can tell the difference between the dark night of the soul and depression.
Sometimes we just want to hear somebody else fucking say it. Does it come with these amazing things? Yes, of course. But is it the hardest thing I could have ever done in my entire life? Yes.
A big thank you to Laura from Soulful Taz. She inspired me on my journey of spiritual awakening, and she has kindly given her permission to use some of her content here in this video so she can help you, too, on your own journey. Laura, I found when I was going through the Dark Night, and I found her to be one of the best people to explain what the Dark Night felt like ever on YouTube. Like, she's just so raw and real. Like, I love her channel. I recommend you check out her channel right here on YouTube, tagged below in the description. Thank you to my key supporters who receive exclusive content on Patreon, as well as keep this channel going. Anna, KB Rocks, Kelly, Sunil, Julie, Stu, 18, Soups on Me, Gail, Cindy, Tina, Tori, John, Lisa, Holly, Christy, Caitlin, Big Feet 30, and GMAC. If you want to receive exclusive content and one-on-one sessions with me, just head on over to patreon.com/thekey, the C-A-Y. The first way to tell the difference between the dark night of the soul and depression are to understand what they are.
And that was a way of like limiting myself, was not allowing myself to trust and have faith in a process that I could not see.
Depression, especially clinical depression, are all medical conditions. They need to be supported by medical professionals such as psychologists, psychiatrists, and general doctors. Depression can be situational, or it could be caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain. No one should ever blame themselves for having depression or put pressure on somebody else to just snap out of it if they are depressed. Would you ask this of somebody with another medical condition? The dark night of the soul is not a medical condition. It is a state of being.
And everybody who knew I was kind of getting dark and sick thought that, this was a medical condition or something like that, and so I wasn't really brave enough to say, like, no, this is a process of something that you've never heard of before, but I'm confident in what it is. And I wasn't able to do that. I still wanted to kind of be normal with something that is going to break your foundation and like scatter the pieces of who you are and not leave you normal at all.
When in the dark night, a person's soul is not dark, nor is it dying. It is the ego that is dying. Well, actually the ego never dies either. It's just taking a back seat. The ego does not like this and usually causes a person a lot of anxiety, and then they lash out at others in order to remain feeling that things were done to this person as a victim, rather than remembering that nothing happens to us, it happens for us to learn. This is a core lesson that people going through a spiritual awakening are aware of. I say this repeatedly, that nothing happens to us, it happens for us. I remember the exact moment when I realized, holy shit, this isn't happening to me, this is happening for me. It happened at the Hershey Arena skating rink. I start to walk away and the board president's like, you need to give me that badge back right now. And I looked at her and I was like, I can't, I need to get back there to him. And I went to go sit down and she came right in front of me and she goes, give me that badge back now. And I sat there and I thought, my God, my patterns were right. Wow. Like, this really showed me, this happened for me. Which brings us to number 2. What is the catalyst for the dark night of the soul versus depression?
Some call it divine feminine energy. But ultimately, all of this boils down to dormant evolutionary energy. And this lays dormant at the bottom of your spine, many times through trauma, drugs, psychedelics is a big one, just being ripe at the time, meditation, yoga, being a part of just a spiritual awakening wave that hits the planet. There's many, many ways this can awaken.
For me, it came after I had a major, I want to say breakthrough, but it was really a breakdown of, relationships. And it really came after me continually refusing to realize that I was creating my life in this negative way. When I went into my dark night was exactly when I realized I had lost almost everybody. And if I hadn't if I hadn't faced it and decided that I was going to not be that way anymore, I would have lost every single person, because I was so negative about everything. And I didn't even realize it was a pattern of mine, but it was part of my karmic patterns to be negative. So when I refused to be like that, I completely ignored anything negative, anything. And I was just like this. I didn't know how to be positive. I didn't know, like when people say, baby learning to walk, that's how it felt for me, learning how to be positive, learning how to take the steps towards getting out of the dark night. I felt very much like I was stuck in cement. I didn't know what to do. So I just decided one day that I was going to do nothing. I was going to sit there in that cement until I found a positive way to get out of it. Because if I would start negatively talking to myself like I would normally do, that wasn't going to get me out of it either. So I just decided I'm just going to stay here until I figure it out. The dark night of the soul is a result of a person having gone through a spiritual awakening and is right in the middle of it. If you're only recently becoming aware of a spiritual awakening, or you've not gone far into the process, this is not the dark night. Depression is a major issue with most people who are looking to go into a spiritual awakening because you're not happy with your life and you'd like to change it. Most people who go into a spiritual awakening have some level of depression that they are experiencing. So with that said, if you start off your awakening with the depression does not automatically turn into the dark night. First, the depression has to lift, and then your soul will know the right time to put you into the dark night. Number 3. What does a dark night feel like?
Oh, it is a gruesome process. So much coming up, so much healing, so much, just like I thought, everyone said in the fall it was going to be great changes, and there were. It was just one of those things where you're like, oh, those kind of changes. Okay. I'm sure you're tired of hearing that it's just going to get better, it's never going to be like this, but when you are in it, it doesn't feel that way. That all went away. I started losing interest in absolutely every single thing that I loved. My genuine persona, my personality, all of that stopped happening.
When I was in the dark night, I very much didn't know who I was. I very much didn't like who I used to be. And I realized something I had never realized. Inside of me, for the last almost 40 years, were two things: anger and apathy. I didn't have anything else. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't understand how to stay positive in situations that sucked. I know that I have things I need and I want to get done, and it feels like a prison sentence. I don't want to be inadequate. I could be great at so many things, but my excuses are my limitation. I limit myself and I'm angry at myself. So there you go. I'm at war with myself. In a depression, there is a level of internal pain that is almost unbearable. The question in a person's head who has depression is usually, what is wrong with me? Or why do people treat me so bad? Or why is my life so miserable? In the dark night, the only questions that exist are, who am I and who do I want to be?
Being in that void, the egoless void where you were once a person called Laura and then you are seriously nothing. I remember sitting on a chair and being like this. I was staring at a wall and no thoughts were arising. There was literally nothing. I mean, when I heard the term void, I was like, that's what happened to me. That's where I was.
When Laura says that you're not interested in anything, she's absolutely right. Even though I did a lot of stuff, like I moved around like a shell, like my daughter had to go to skating and, my sons had sports and, it wasn't me. It was just my body moving. In a depression, a person walks around, sometimes they can't even get out of bed, but it's all clouded in a gray filter. There are no bold colors or bright sunlight. It's all just one monotone color of gray. The same can be said for feelings. Other than deep sadness and maybe anger, there's no other emotion. In contrast to depression, in the dark night, there is no emotion. When I first entered the dark night, I described it as sitting on a motionless lake in a small boat during the night with no oars. I was just there. I called it a void. I was waiting to get through my void in order to come out the other side. The biggest thing, though, is I realized that void was not something I was in. The void was inside of me. I was void of everything at that point. A person loses all sense of who they were to the point that at times they hear their own name and don't recognize it. It is much like walking around as a shell or a paper cutout person. There's not sadness, there's not joy, there's no apathy, there is nothing. I would say that I felt so empty that you could drop a dime inside of me and you could listen as it falls through the emptiness and then hits the bottom. Number 4, what is the treatment for the dark night?
It really was kind of going into unraveling every part of who I was, and then the void, and then slowly rebuilding, and right? So poof, you awaken, and then you kind of get into the dark and mucky business. But it's crucial because the person that I was built on wasn't really me. It wasn't like truly in alignment with my higher self. And so what needs to happen is it all needs to just kind of rip away, right?
And Laura is very right when she says it's just stripping. Strip everything away from yourself. Everything that you know about yourself is gone. Holly sent me a book, Louise Hay's Heal Your Body. I took Louise Hay's affirmations and recorded them on my phone. So I actually didn't have to do much to make this process move forward. I would listen to this tape repeatedly. And it's literally just me saying affirmations 3 times in a row on loop. That got me through every day, reminding myself that the universe loves me. I am letting go of other people's ideas of how I should be living my life. I'm free. Why did I keep journals? I was told during one of my downloads that I needed to keep records of everything I was going through, and I would find out why later. I now know why. It's to help all of you going through your own spiritual awakenings. Then I started to meditate pretty much every day, all day, because I didn't want to do anything else. And luckily, this all happened during the global pandemic that we were going through. So I really had no place to go. So meditation was it for me. This was a download that came through during one of my meditations. They said to me, write about how you live every day and face the daily life with a newly positive outlook. Tell them the steps taken, the setbacks, all of the dreams. We're giving you those dreams as a roadmap to where you are. Those dreams I had during the dark night were so specific and so pointed to one issue or another, and it was pointing me to specific kinds of karmic patterns that I needed to release in order to move through the dark night. The treatment for the dark night is to simply go within. And that means a huge amount of self-reflection without blame or talking to other people about how you feel. Going within simply means that you are with yourself, reflecting on your choices, actions, words, and feelings. A person has stripped away most of what makes up their ego, their false self. This must include time to reflect upon choices, actions, words, feelings that the person did themselves that caused them major negative events in their lives. This reflection would take place without blaming others or excusing the action. The person would have to come to terms with the fact that they created their own life and they are the cause for the negative state it is in. Any form of blame or excuse prevents this person from moving forward in the spiritual awakening process. The realization that life is what you make of it is faced with absolutely no blame. That is when everything is stripped away.
Realization is that you are the one completely limiting yourself. Like nobody is telling you, like nobody is rejecting you for who you really are. Nobody is really saying that you need to be a certain way in society. You come into the realization that this is all you, and this is an unfolding process. It's really baby steps with each like small thing that's happening.
Number 5, feeling stuck versus feeling pushed down. In the dark night of the soul, or as I like to call it, the dark night of the ego is said to be dying. Really, it's just being greatly diminished. And that gives a person a feeling stuck.
I remember going to bed one night, and at this time, because everything was being stripped away, and I remember just thinking, what the fuck is happening to my higher self? And I got a direct voice in my head that said, you are dying. There was a part of me that knew that it was ego death, and this is how innocent this was. I was actually Googling it. I was like, dying? Ego death? I had no knowledge on the subject. And
You feeling, questioning who you are. I mean, Laura said it, like this person named Laura. There was a couple days where I didn't even know who Stacie was. I felt very much like I was stuck in cement. I didn't know what to do. I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to be the person I want to be, because I just don't know how. I was in the cement. I didn't know what to do. So I just decided one day that I was going to do nothing. I was going to sit there in that cement until I found a positive way to get out of it. As stated, the only way to get through this process of the dark night of the soul is to go within and evaluate your life choices and your life circumstances without any judgment or blame to self or others. Whereas depression feels like you're being held down or held back by outside forces. This was the largest difference for me in knowing what the difference between the dark night and depression is. I felt no level of despair whatsoever in my dark night of the soul. However, when I was depressed, and I had been depressed for a very long time before this, there was always an element of despair, hopelessness, sadness, anger. I always had those feelings. But when I went through my spiritual awakening and then entered into the dark night, it was just nothing. And although I was a bit uncomfortable at first, I decided nothing was better than feeling angry and sad all the time. The dark night of the soul forces you to go within and reflect on yourself and your choices, whereas depression requires that you get outside help. The reason for needing outside help with depression is because the risk of suicidal tendencies is there. In contrast, the dark night of the soul, there is no risk of suicide because you know you are valuable and you know you are loved. You know the only way to get through the dark night is reflect on yourself within without outside help that might enable you in a victimhood state. And I was in this situation with my kids' school where it was very much stressing me, and I was very much trying not to react because any reaction I had to this was not a good one. So the day it all changed was when I had gone in to take a shower, and I talk to my guides a lot in the shower. It has something to do with the water. So I put my hands up and I just said, okay, guides, I am giving you complete control of my life at this point. I'm ignoring my ego and my false self. I'm going to release every pattern, and I'm not going to resist anything you bring to me. I release all of it. And I was going down a list. All of a sudden, I said, I release, and I paused, and this word rage, and the word came out like rage. It wasn't even my voice. Rage. And it just kept coming out. Rage. And as it ended, it came up and I started coughing like this, actually. It's a really good example. Thank you, universe. That's exactly what happened. And I was standing in the shower, just coughing. All of this energy came up out of me and I coughed it out. I stood there for a minute because it was like so much negative energy came up off of me that I felt like I was standing in that shower 3 feet off the ground. And I'm not even joking. It was euphoric. I just released something major. Now let's review. I had just told the universe I'm aligning with my soul's will. I had just said I would resist nothing. I gave them a list of things that I was concerned about, like my kids' school. Everything was just so stressful. I gave it up to the universe and I said, I'm going to resist nothing. So 3 hours after I got out of the shower and I had just aligned with my soul's will, my husband comes to me and says, what do you think about moving to the Caribbean? They have a school that's really good and the kids could go there and we would live the life we've always dreamed of. Ordinarily, my response would have been, are you fucking crazy? Not only did he want to move countries, we were in the middle of a global pandemic, but I had just said to my guides, I would resist nothing. So I found myself going, well played, universe. Well played. And I said to my husband, Sure, let's talk about it. Fast forward, now we're living in the Caribbean because the universe brought us here. People who are ready to go into the dark night know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are not understanding what I'm saying, then you are in a depression and not the dark night, because the universe, our spirit guides, and our soul does not allow us to go into the dark night until we understand fully our value in this world, our value in this universe, and the purpose of the dark night. Even if you don't understand the purpose on the conscious level, your soul knows what that is. And it's time to build yourself back up. And the way to do this is to not accept anything negative in your life, only positivity. It may take some time to get comfortable with positive feelings, but once you do, there is no turning back. Follow the Cay the Soul Awakening on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you enjoy learning real-life strategies to using spirituality in day-to-day life, subscribe now. And as my son Buddy says, ding ding, don't forget to hit that bell. Also, please share this video on your own social media platforms. The wider my net is, the more people I can reach to help them find their way to happiness. Thank you for helping me.